I'm David Lyman, your guide for the next 13 weeks as we explore the world of photography. Come with me as we meet some of photography's most respected artists and find out how they work and how they make photographs. An old uncle of mine, Lyman Underwood, had a canoe built in Upper Maine, and he had it built with a large view camera mounted on the front so he could take photographs of moose on the rivers and lakes of Upper Maine. We don't have to go to such extremes today because the technology we have makes photography relatively easy. The camera does most of the thinking for us, but what's good is that we as photographers have to do most of the feeling. And it's the feeling that this 13-part series deals with. It's how to make photographs from inside so that the pictures you make are more you. We're going to join a number of famous photographers that teach here with me every summer, and we're going to find out how they use the camera, both as a creative tool and a means of self-expression. And they're going to share with you their secrets, their methods, and the way they happen to work. Because each of us sees the world differently, and you're going to see the world through their eyes, and hopefully you'll see better too. This series will explore how some of the world's most important photographers work, how they see the world, and how they make photographs. The series also deals with how you can use your camera to make better photographs. Photography is a very big part of our daily lives. Nearly everyone owns a camera. We see photographs every day. We share snapshots with our friends and family. Some of us have even made a career as being a photographer. For me, photography has always been a tool, a process which has helped me explore the world. Photography has also been a way for me to explore my inner feelings, to express and to share my joy of discovery. And it's this sharing that this series is about. This week, we'll spend some time with two photographers who teach with me here at the Maine Photographic Workshop. One of them has been making portraits of famous people for more than 50 years. We'll spend some time with him and his class, and then we'll get to meet him up close. Our other guest is a landscape and nature photographer who has been traveling the world for many years making photographs for the major magazines. There's a marvelous arrangement of ferns, two ferns, some lily plants, and some moss, and about 6 shades of green. The arrangement's very simple. It reminds me of a Japanese garden. Mike Yamashita has done a lot of work in Japanese gardens, and we're going to join him in a garden here in Maine.
Rain is really starting to work for us. Got beautiful highlights on the edge of the red leaves in the background now.
Mike Yamashita has been making photographs for the National Geographic for more than 17 years. His approach to photographing flowers in this garden is cautious, almost reverent, and he loves working in the rain. Hi, Mike.
Hi, David.
Well, you got the rain you asked for.
Yeah, it's doing some great things to the leaves down here.
Let me take a look. Oh, yeah. What lens are you using?
I'm on 35 millimeter on a 24 to 50 zoom.
Do you like the zoom lenses?
I really do. They make it very easy to compose inside the camera. I don't have a problem with
Lack of sharpness?
No, I think today's zooms are, the improvements they've made have made them comparable to any fixed focal length lens.
This is an automatic, almost fully automatic camera, and it's automatic focus. Are you using it in any kind of automatic focus function now, or are you overriding it?
I'm overriding that. I'm also overriding the exposure, which I could be shooting on automatic. If I was to read this as is, I would probably overexpose because the leaves are dark and the camera is picking up this light from the reflection from the raindrops, and therefore the tendency for the meter would be to show this as a much darker picture.
Right, the picture. It would try to override and make the highlights gray.
Yeah. While we're talking, let me put this towel over here.
You like working in the rain, evidently. I mean,
Yes.
Most of the book on Japan was photographed in the rain, right?
That's correct.
You must be one of the most famous rain photographers that I've met.
Well, it's yeah, I don't know how famous those pictures are, but certainly they were all taken in the rain, and I've become very much an aficionado of working in the rain, rainy night, wet look photography, which works really well in the garden. Photographers are generally very intense people, and you can...
Perhaps a little impatient too?
Yeah, impatient. You often find in a conversation with a photographer that his eyes might be roaming everywhere other than the person they're talking to.
Looking for the visual stimulation.
That's right, and of course you're told that, you know, as a kid that you should have good eye contact with whoever you're talking about, but if the scene especially is beautiful and things are happening around here, I think it's your natural inclination to kind of view that scene. I'm having trouble right now, like looking at you.
What tips would you have for someone who wants to become a photographer?
Certainly looking at pictures, looking at good pictures, buying, going to the library, looking at magazines, good photography books. It's all around you. And then obviously shooting, rolling film through those cameras. The fun part, let's face it, is the process of making pictures. The true pleasure is making the pictures, and that's when you're totally into the concentration on just the images, and it's almost a frees it unclutters your mind.
Well, that's where I think the monks would say that you're in the Zen moment.
Yeah.
I joined Mike at the Lightbox, where we talked about some of his favorite photographs from his new book on Japanese gardens.
The pathway being the way it is. It's the patterns on the rocks, forcing that they want the stroller to look down, and in so looking down, you're arriving at the entrance to the tea house in a humble position. You know, you're looking down and you're seeing all these intricate rock patterns and the soft sand and the moss to the side, and by the time you traverse this not very long path, maybe 50 yards, you are already
You're in a different state of mind.
Tranquil. Yeah.
Different state of mind.
And that is indeed the mood you must be in to have the tea ceremony.
Okay, we miss that in this country.
Yeah. Well, I think we miss a lot of detail. I think photographers see a lot, just see more than the average person.
You may wonder why I'm in a canoe. Actually, it's a marvelous place for a photographer. It's a good means of transportation and gets you in places that most people can't get. And that's usually where you make more interesting photographs. I've been a photographer for over 35 years, and I've been teaching photography here in Maine for the last 20 years. And I'm joined by some of the other photographers in the world whose reputations and whose names you probably do know. People like Arnold Newman. Arnold's been photographing presidents and chiefs of states and actors and artists for the last 5 decades. We're going to join Arnold with his class as he discusses how to be a better photographer.
Carry over. Get started.
You lead with your best. You don't save it for anything.
This must be your 12th summer teaching at the workshop.
Something like that. We're trying to figure. I guess it might be a good idea. Maybe 12th or maybe 13th. I don't know. I think we've been coming. How long? What year is this for you?
19. Why do you keep coming back?
Love it up here. I love teaching. I think there is no other place that is like this, and I think this is a good workshop. It's the same place I've been in the world. I told the class again this morning, I'm forever taking pictures, whether I have the camera in my hands or not. You're always learning to see. You're always learning to look. You have to learn to look and learn to see. It's a big thing. I keep saying, I know I've repeated myself. I'm still on a go from this morning. You don't take pictures with your cameras. You take them with your hearts and your minds. And some come first, some the other. Sometimes you even take with your tummy, which I've developed very well.
There's a lot of people that come through the workshop to learn photography, both professionals that are trying to get a little better handle on their career, and also a lot of people coming to start photography. What would you advise people who are just starting in photography to do? Any advice for them?
Well, you have to get them to go back and start learning where they came from. A lot of them are imitating the imitators who imitated who imitated who imitated. And so they go back to the source. They know where they come from or came from. And then they can go ahead and be much more authoritative about the way that, in the direction in which they want to go.
So the history of photography is important.
It's not important, it's essential. As I tell them, I'm not smarter than they are, I've just been around longer. And so what we try to do is to expose them to the best of photography, some of the photographers have been up here, and encourage them to find their own way. There is no best way. You've heard me say this 1,000 times. There is no one way, and if somebody tells you that, run like hell. And what I try to do is what my teachers did to me. It was set me free, leave me open to ideas. And that's about all we can do for them. Take Lucy Johnson. She started off as my teaching assistant, worked for me, and now she's a marvelous photographer. She had the talent within her to begin with. You have to have. Now she's off on her own, but still is part of our family.
I learned so much about looking through the frame of the camera and paying attention to what's there. Everything that's in his photographs is there because he's allowed it to be there or he has placed it there. A lot of people today that are doing portraits have a tendency to copy Arnold's style. Arnold was the first person to do environmental portraits commercially. And people copy that because he is so good at what he does. I don't think you're going to find anybody ever that does portraits as well as Arnold.
How do you get people to cooperate in making photographs?
I'll tell them they don't sit still, I'll beat the heck out of them. Well, at a certain level in life, starting with the White House, you can't say that exactly. You have to with a smile on your face anyhow. But you try to, the key word is ideas and honesty. Honesty I learned from Stiglitz. He didn't care what you did, as long as the picture seemed honest. This is Andy Warhol.
Where did the idea come from to
This
do
was a structure. Andy had many. Nobody really knew anything about Andy. They only knew one small part of him. That was deliberate on his part. When I started photographing, he immediately put on a mask. So to exaggerate that mask, I bleached it to make it more mask-like. And then I began to tear it out, put a mask over a mask within a mask, and which was what Andy was all about. And I wound up with the one which for me
Said the
was
most
the closest thing that I can say, this is a mask within a mask within a mask. This is what Andy Warhol was all about.
Many of your photographs deal with the environment. You're placing people in their studios. You're using objects that they have made or objects so that the picture speaks both from Arnold Newman and from the artist themselves. Where did that come from? And where do you get your ideas from for those photographs?
I don't know. Where does anybody get their ideas
Well, the
from?
Stravinsky
You go
photograph, for
back.
instance.
Well, I love music. I love Stravinsky's music. And I started thinking, he's not a pianist, but his work with the shape of the piano, to me, is like a half note. And it's also strong, it's harsh, it's absolutely lyrical and beautiful. Just like Stravinsky's music. That's strength. So I started from that premise and went on. So you said talk about the environment. Well, there isn't any environment because Stravinsky's home was in California and I had to photograph him in New York. There was no way of doing it. When I got out to California, his home wasn't much of an environment either. It was very bourgeois, all white furniture and everything else. It'd be nice and comfortable, but it didn't remind you of Stravinsky. And this was my solution. One thing I discovered over the years, that the people, if you look like you know what you're doing, and if they're familiar with your work, it helps also. And if you got a reputation, it helps too. But the thing is, many a time, a big CEO, and even a couple of times the President of the United States, take a 10-minute sitting and drag it off for 45 minutes and then sit around, as I did with Kennedy on a couple of occasions and things like that. And I'd say, thank you for the extra time and all that. He said, well, that's all right. He said, really, you looked like you knew what you were doing, so I let you go on. And you have to know what you're doing. And if you ever lose control over a situation or look, even if you have control, but look like you don't, fumbling around, they're going to get very, very antsy and want to get the heck out of there already. And that's one thing students have to learn in photographing people. You got to be in control, like a director on the film set, and you got to act like you're in control and really be in control, and people are willing to work with you. I realized that I have to keep an eye on my own work all the time. I was so taken in by doing senators and vice presidents. In 2 days, in one story on the Senate, I did portraits of the next 3 presidents of the United States, Nixon, Kennedy, and Johnson. The thing is, it can be exciting and fascinating for people to be told the stories. You should not be caught up in the so-called celebrity syndrome, the famous syndrome, all these things. The most important thing is the photographs themselves.
I want to do some portraits.
Portrait.
Well, with natural light.
Word if I ever heard one.
Well, not really.
Okay. All righty. You can always spot somebody up and coming. You can always tell, even when they're like 20 years old.
Wow. Okay, these are.
But some people need a little bit more push, with promise, with excitement. They're all our children. I'm used to being a daddy and a granddaddy. That's the way I feel.
Well, thank you, Warren, for being with us. In the weeks ahead, we'll be helping you become a better photographer. We'll explore ways the camera can be used better. We'll meet some of the world's most respected photographers as they share with us their secrets and their images. It was Ernst Haas that told me that photographs are made from the stomach and from the heart. It's just a gut reaction you have to things. It's a feeling you have. Photographs are not made with the brain, they're made with your heart. They're made with your soul. This is David Lyman, hoping you'll join us next week, and in the meantime, make some photographs.